when I go to film schools, I like to tell people we have too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
That's so true.
Everybody wants to be the chief, producer. And again, let's change that mindset. When people ask me what I do, I say I'm a storyteller. Right?
That's a great word.
And it doesn't matter whether you're a producer, director. At the end of the day, it's a story that we're telling that's the most important.
Yes. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Real Podcast with Andile. Today we have another special guest. Actually, I would prefer that this guest they actually introduce themselves. Her name is Beverley. She's from Trace TV, Cape Town. So, hi Beverley, welcome to the Real Podcast.
Pleasure. I don't have to look at any of the cameras. I can
No, you just talk to me. It's a conversation.
Just as correction, I'm from Trace Studios.
So
not
Trace Studios. Sorry, guys. Trace Studios. I mean, for me, it's
and
the
I'll
same
tell
thing.
you, as we go along, I'll tell you what
Yeah,
the difference
for
is
me, it's
between
the same
Trace.
thing.
No, they're not.
I know.
So a bit about my
Yeah.
background.
So if you can just tell us about yourself, who you are and where you're coming from.
So I'm probably regarded as one of the sort of veterans of the industry, the black industry. I've been in the industry for about 30 years.
Oh wow.
I came into the industry in 1994. So just to give you a bit of a background, before 1994, I was part of the liberation struggle.
Yeah.
I was imprisoned during the 80s
Wow.
for my activities. I was making bombs, bombing the shit out of them. And
Let me just say, I was making bombs.
yeah. And I got caught, and so I ended up in prison for 2 years, in Paulsmoor prison. So I know racism intimately.
Sure.
And then when I came out of prison, I decided, fuck this shit. I'm now going to go learn how to make proper bombs and shoot AK-47. So I went for training in Angola and Tanzania.
Yeah.
And then came back and ended up being a courier for arms and people, basically. So I was very much involved in the sort of underground back in the 80s and 90s. Ended up coming back, became an investigative journalist. It was sort of natural. Worked on the TRC, covered all the Truth and Reconciliation Commission hearings. Realized in 1996 that I hadn't dealt with my own shit, what had happened to me when I was in prison. So resigned and started working in the film industry.
So you were a journalist.
I worked as an investigative journalist.
So investigation journalist. So were you working for the government or you were working for a private sector?
I was working, so back in the 90s.
This is a stupid question. Government was what you were fighting.
We were fighting them, yeah.
Exactly,
back in the 90s, we were exposing all the apartheid era death squads, Vlakplaas, Eugene de Kock, CCP, so all the assassinations we were exposing, who was behind it. So we were doing it even before the TRC. My early life as an investigative journalist was being on the run because they tried to kill us because we were exposing the truth. So it was almost automatic for that team. We ended up entering the SABC in 1994 because the SABC suddenly realized that they needed authentic journalists to help them cover the country's first democratic elections. And so that's how I ended up at the SABC to help them cover the country's first democratic elections. I physically saw them take down F.W. de Klerk and put Nelson Mandela up.
Wow.
I was there at that moment of transition.
That must have been your proudest moment.
Yeah, but then I started to notice that the same type of person from the ANC was coming in that was the old National Party, that propaganda.
Sure.
And I started to see the shit coming. And I was like, I'm out of here, right? Yeah. So I stayed there for 2 years. In 1996, I started up the TRC. I worked with Jacques Poe. Jacques Poe is now the guy that wrote The President's Keepers. He's just got a new book out. So he's doing all the exposés of corruption at the moment.
Sure.
But Jacques comes from back in the day. And I would say one of my mentors was a journalist called Max Duprier.
Is Mix still around?
Max is still around. There's an online Vrye Weekblad now.
Shout out to you, Max.
So they were Afrikaners who risked life and limb to expose the apartheid government. And the saddest thing for me is that today the contribution to the struggle in this country is not acknowledged. They're just seen as racist white old men, and they're not. They were actually revolutionaries in their own right. You know? So anyway, we entered the SABC in 1994. It was a culture shock. For the first time, I saw the enemy right here, you know. And we had to find a way to work together. But anyway, I then left the SABC.
So when you went, so now, from being an investigation journalist, so you were working for a private sector at the time, or you were independent?
Would say independent, not private sector. Vrye Weekblad was an independent newspaper.
Okay,
wasn't owned by.
and then you went to the SABC.
Then I went
Did
to
you
the
work?
SABC.
You worked for the SABC or
Worked for the SABC for 2 years in news and current affairs.
music?
News and
Or
current affairs.
news and current affairs. Okay, cool.
It's mainly a current affairs sort of documentary
Sure.
journalist.
Yes.
What was very fortunate about that time was that they realized that we were good journalists, but we didn't really understand the medium. So they brought in the BBC, they brought in the Canadians, the CBC, and they brought in the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. And I did training courses with all of these people
So they brought all of these to work with the SABC
to train
or to
this
train.
new
Okay, yeah, I hear you.
calculated
I hear you.
bunch of journalists who came in the visual medium. Right?
Yes.
And so I was very fortunate. We were trained by the Thompson Foundation, which is the BBC's documentary wing based in Wales.
Yes.
We were sent to Wales. We went to go and do courses
Wow.
there.
That's
So
great.
in that time, I was very fortunate that there was all this training happening.
Just a quick question. Sorry for cutting you. So who sent you there? It was the SABC actually, or was the government?
SABC.
SABC sent you to be trained in Wales. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were investing quite a lot of capital in training this bunch of lefty journalists who had entered the SABC, basically. You know, our mandate was clear that we needed to change content. Right? For me, transformation wasn't just putting black bums on seats,
Yes.
but it was also changing the content of what we were seeing on screen.
Sure.
So I could say my first documentaries was the first of its kind that was showing the impact of what apartheid had done to people from black people's perspectives. Because prior to that, we only saw it from a white journalist's perspective of what had happened to the poor blacks. You know what I mean?
Yes.
For the first time, we were giving a voice to the voiceless.
Wow.
So in a way, we were kind of trailblazers back, and I'm now talking 94, 95,
Crazy.
right? And then the TRC happened in 96. We started the first, so we ended up being selected to be the journalists covering the TRC for the country. And I think that was probably the most traumatic period,
Just so, what is TRC?
the Truth and Reconciliation
Truth
Commission.
and Reconciliation.
It was probably the most traumatic period of my life because I suddenly realized
Were you also there?
I was a journalist covering the
I
hearings,
still remember. I was still young at the time. That was huge.
1996.
Like many families, like, yeah.
My problem was that a lot of white cops were coming to confess to me. They called us the Bugbank. What is that in English?
Yeah.
Bug is anyway.
The viewers at home or the listeners, they will just recite. Google it.
So they would walk in, and I would be the only darkie that they'd see, and they'd say, I want to come and confess. So like a confession. And so I had to listen to many stories of men telling me how they murdered people, and how these people came to them at night, and they couldn't sleep because the spirits weren't rested, you know.
Oh, wow.
So my own psychosis started because it was just crazy. Do you know what I mean? It was a very crazy time in our country.
Yes, yes.
And so I realized that I hadn't dealt with a lot of my own shit. And so I started to take my work home with me. And that's not good when you take I couldn't just be normal, you
Yes.
know. And then I decided 24-hour notice, I'm out of here. And I left.
So
and I never
you
looked back.
out of where?
I left the SABC.
The SABC.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went to go and freelance in the film and television industry in Johannesburg
So
in drama because I wanted to. Nothing was I need to worry about what actors wear and
wanted to,
I wanted
it's
nothing
about
to do with
less hours about
yeah, you know. And I ended up working in every single department because I said one day when I'm a producer, I want to know what each department does.
That's the case, yes, exactly.
I wanted to be a director because my first love was always directing.
Yes.
But I very quickly realized that South Africa followed the Hollywood model of producer-run productions rather than
I'm sorry for cutting you. I was talking to a South African producer about one of my stories which he likes, and he says that Andile, I can help you with the story, but if the narrative can, I mean, if the what do you call this, the audience wouldn't just reflect South African story, but it can be like on the level of like Hollywood in terms of the narrative of the story. You know, I'm like, nah, this is how I want my story because this story is like, you know, South African, pure, clean South African story. You know, it doesn't have to be changed there and there and there and there. So I do agree with what you are saying. Some of South African producers are.
The problem with South Africa is that, unlike Europe, so in Europe, it's auteur-led, right? So the director controls the creative in
Yes.
Europe. Probably even in Korea, it's a PD, producer-director, is
Yes.
one person. But Hollywood and South Africa, the producer controls the creative.
So the PD that I would see on these like BBC documentaries, it's producer director. I would ask myself,
One
what
row.
does that mean?
One
What does
row.
that PD mean?
Yeah, it's one
Produ-
row.
Oh, so
Producer,
the
director.
producer was the director as well. Oh, and now I understand. Because I always ask myself, like on these BBC documentaries that I always watch, you know?
You watch any Korean drama,
Yeah.
or even movie, you'll see PD,
Yeah.
producer director.
I now I get it.
But in South Africa, I realized that directors were guns for hire. And the producer was the one that controlled the creative. Right? And so I had to make a decision in 1996. I remember I worked on one of the first new South African drama series called Molefish
I know Molefish. Molefish was huge.
in 1996.
Yeah, Molefish was huge.
We shot it on Super 16, actually.
Really?
So I started in the industry when we shot on film, dude, not video, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I realized. And my mentor, Barry Krill, who was actually from Cape Town, one of the top line
Barry
producers.
Krill.
Yeah.
I know Barry.
Yeah.
I know
Barry
Barry.
died 2 years ago, but he was one of my...
He what?
He died 2 years
No,
ago.
you're lying.
Barry Krill, yeah.
Barry's no more. I worked with Barry. I was the first AD. That was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I was the first AD on a job, and Barry he's actually the one. Oh my goodness.
He was I would say, he taught me most of what I know as a mentor.
What an amazing guy.
Yeah.
What an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Barry Krill. I know Barry.
And he said to me at the time, you're going to need to decide whether you want to be a director or a producer. You can't be both.
Oh my goodness.
And I kind of more and more then moved into producing because I'm a bit of a control freak. So I decided I want to be in control of the creative. And so more and more I kind of moved in the... But
Yes.
if I have to step in, and I have on occasion had to, because sometimes my director was on coke or something, step into shoots, I can do that because I can direct. I'm an
Yes.
actor's director. I'm not
Yes.
really a technical director. I'm an actor's director. So from 96 to the present, well, until 2019,
Yeah.
I worked for myself. I ran my own production company for almost 12 years. It was called
wow.
Pitch Black Films.
Pitch Black Films.
Yeah. We were based in Gardens here in Cape Town.
Wow.
And then I went to Joburg in 2020.
So what was your production company doing? Were you doing like drama stuff or?
I mainly did documentaries. We did everything. Magazine shows, mainly television, children's shows, entertainment shows. I very quickly got bored because I realized because I see myself as a storyteller.
Yeah.
I didn't become a storyteller to fill a hole on television.
Yeah.
I started to feel like I'm a factory and I was churning out.
Sure.
So I eventually said, no, I can't do this anymore. The SABC then imploded in 2009.
Okay, so let's just go back just a little bit. So from the SABC, you opened your own production company,
Yeah.
which is Pitch Black.
First started with my one-person operation, which is called Ancestral Vision.
Yes.
And then when I partnered with my husband and another filmmaker, we then formed a company called Pitch Black Films.
Sure.
We actually won a SAFTA.
Oh, really?
Historical documentary series. It was a show called What's Your Story?
Yeah.
It was on SABC One. We ended up doing almost 70 odd episodes.
That's crazy.
And then I started to feel like a factory. And I was like, I can't do this shit. I'm that kind of person. I can't do this shit.
When you're done, it's done.
And then I realized Cape Town is an incredibly racist city, especially if you're a freelancer.
Mm-hmm.
And realized
Which year was that?
2008, 2009.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. That's around about the time when I started like earlier than that. Yeah.
So I realized, no, if I wanted to upskill myself, I needed to go back to Joburg. And then I went to Joburg for another
It's the case.
12 years.
It's always the case.
Because I wanted to come back with skills in the narrative, in drama.
I'm glad that we have a guest that actually says that I wanted to upskill myself. I had to go to Joburg.
No.
I'm glad because I've been saying that myself.
No.
And people will start thinking that now this guy, there's something wrong about him.
You won't be able to upskill yourself here.
I'm
You'll
glad.
be blocked here.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
I'm just want to hear your background and then we're going to get into
Yeah.
the nitty-gritty stuff.
And then, so I went to Joburg, thought I could work as a series producer because my instinct is creative. I'm a writer as well.
Yeah.
And then realized that budgets were so shit. Producers themselves had become the series producers and they were looking for line producers.
Yeah.
And I became a line producer by default because I'd run my own production company, so I knew how to do books,
Yeah.
So I ended up becoming a line producer, and I'm not sorry because I then ended up working on, from 2011 to 2018, I kind of worked as a line producer, series producer on an enormous amount of drama series. I also happened to be in Joburg at the time when telenovelas suddenly came on the scene.
Crazy.
We didn't know what the hell it was. It was a hybrid between a sort of daily soap and a drama.
Yes.
So we had to find our feet, and I'm glad because I now know exactly what it is.
Yes.
And then ended up being headhunted by, at that time, in 2019, it was called the Kushle Media.
Oguhle Media.
Yeah, to start up the drama department. Kushle Media then got bought by Trace Global, which is a...
That's what I wanted to ask.
Which is an international French-based company.
Okay, so Oguhle Media is no longer independent now.
No, it doesn't exist anymore.
So there's no Oguhle anymore.
No. So Trace Studios came about as a combination of Kushle Media, Zero Gravity, which is a production company in Johannesburg, 360, which was a digital company, and Magnitude Studios.
I know 360 is.
So those four companies came together to form Trace Studios.
360, they actually follow me on Instagram.
Okay. So Trace Studios is a production company that creates, produces, and distributes. We have a very strong distribution arm, and our distribution arm is in Paris, right? So we're global.
Yes.
Currently, so I then, in 2021, when Trace restructured the company,
yes,
I was appointed as the Vice President of Scripted Content for Trace Studios International.
So Trace bought Oguhle Media around
Yeah.
about 2021.
No,
Earlier
they
than
bought
that.
them in they bought them in 2019, but the deal only really came through in 2020 because I had to do due diligence, all of that
So
shit.
2020, what were you doing at Oguhle? So it was still Oguhle at 2020. Then from 2020 to 20,
To now, it became Trace Studios.
it became Trace. So when it became Trace Studios, and then they made you like a vice president of unscripted?
Of scripted.
No, of scripted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that my designation at the moment is VP Scripted
That's
at
great.
Trace.
That's,
At the moment,
that sounds like a cool description.
very cool because at the moment, I'm doing a drama series in Nigeria.
Really?
I'm doing a drama series in Ghana.
Yeah.
I'm developing a drama series in Cote d'Ivoire. I'm doing a drama series in Martinique and Guadeloupe, in the Caribbean. And then I'm busy with a Netflix drama series with Dion Meyer for Netflix. SABC has also just commissioned us to do a telenovela.
Yeah. Do they have money?
We hope. I think they're going to only give a few production companies
because
stuff.
No,
listen, I know. But we still, obviously, as Trace, still do children's shows, but I don't have anything to do with that, or unscripted shows. We just did Real Housewives of Cape Town.
Really?
Probably going to do season 2. We also have just gotten The Voice, so we're doing The Voice. So Trace Studios does unscripted and scripted, and then also what we call factory, which is like commercial, not commercial, more kind of branded content, basically.
Okay, so as the president, as the vice president of Trace Studios, so what's your role? Like when you say you're going to wake up in the morning, I'm the vice president of Trace Studios. What are you going?
Scripted.
What?
Trace Studios.
Sorry, scripted. Scripted. So what are you going to work to do?
I wake up and I think, let me think of a great idea for a drama series or for a
That's a cool job.
feature film. I
would
I'm
love
doing
that.
now.
I would love that job.
What I hate line producing, so I'm at the moment doing what I really love doing, which is creative.
Yes.
So we come up with concepts. I work with young people. I've just interviewed about 9 ex-AFTA graduates. I'm choosing one of them to mentor, to come into my team.
Sure.
And all we do is we come up with concepts.
Concepts for content.
For different, and we do a lot of intelligence gathering.
Sure.
Who's looking for what?
So what concepts are you guys looking? I mean, are you looking for, or what content are you creating? Like any, because when you talk about Trace, most of the people, they think of
music.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's great that we see this side of Trace Studios. Because Trace is not just music.
No.
It's broader.
So we the content kind of creators of Trace.
Yes.
There's Trace TV, and that's music.
Yeah.
Which will they will probably commission us to do content for them, right? But our mandate is broader than just doing stuff at Trace TV.
Yeah.
Right? We don't just, of course, yes. At the moment, we're developing a documentary series on Ready D, which will probably show on Trace.
I mean, actually, I've been asking myself that question for so long. When is a proper Ready D
we doing that
documentary coming out?
I've
been asking myself that question. When is it? There are some others, but a proper one.
Absolutely.
Proper Ready D.
And he's involved in the process. So
that's cool.
You know what I mean?
That's great. That's great.
But I'm interested in authentic South African stories, with authentic South African voices. So, for example, and changing the narrative, right? Because I believe, and I've had this discussion with Netflix as well, the problem with South African stories is that it's caught in Bantustans. Right?
Yeah.
Our writers are locked in a apartheid era mindset, right? So we write from stereotypes. We don't write about archetypes. So when we think black man, infidelity, scam, don't talk about colored people, jolly whatnot, Tutriscoon, gangster.
Exactly, yeah.
No fucking teeth, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Stereotype, right? The black woman, femme fatale, slay queen, bitch, kills her husband, steals other women's husbands.
Yeah.
Right? Huh? Tell me any South African story, there's 2 families, they are fighting about something, the children fall in love, a very fucked up Romeo and Juliet, but anyway, guns, right? Backstabbing, I mean, that's the South African narrative.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm always arguing that we don't have a South African aesthetic, and we don't have an understanding of what South African story is. We've taken the worst of Hollywood, morphed it a little bit, and we're putting that forward as South African story.
Exactly.
Right?
It's almost like when we create stories, we don't create stories for us.
No.
We create stories for who the person that is going to be buying into the story, what
Precisely.
they will think, So it's no longer we're thinking from the perspective, okay, this is what this South Africa is about. And we know that, but the problem is we have to take this to people, so we have to change now.
But what our other problem is also is that we are focused on plot and we're not focused on character.
Yes.
Right? And what television, we're now living in the high noon of television, right?
Yes.
Golden era of television.
Yes.
Television is almost at the same level as feature films.
Yeah.
Right? Writers are writing for television as if they're writing for feature films, right? We're not there.
Yeah.
We're still making, I won't mention the shows on
That's
Netflix,
true.
but we're still making stuff that look very glossy.
Yes, yes.
So quality-wise, it's 4D and it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of content, ask any ordinary South African, they can't relate to it.
No, it's true.
Because
it's true. No, it's true.
It's not our story.
Yeah, that's true.
So for me, for example, we did a show for SABC. We've just been recommissioned to do a third season. Oh my God. And thank you, SABC, but the budgets are so shit. But anyway.
But it keeps the cash flow going.
It keeps the cash flow.
Yeah.
It's a series called Signal High, which is set at a high school called Signal High.
Signal High was the one that was done by Obuhle Media.
Back in the day. Now
Back in
it's
the day.
Studios. The first one was awful.
I was about to ask that. Are you guys going to upgrade this one? Because that one was
You should have seen
bad.
the second one. The second one was directed by Vincent Malloy, award-winning SAFTA director who did Chovito.
Yeah, Chovito.
I brought Vincent in from Joburg.
Sure.
I know Vincent since he's 18 and he owed me a favor. So I brought him in and we changed the whole look of Signal High in the second season.
Yeah, the first one was bad.
No.
It was bad.
I wasn't even part of that. I wasn't even near officially when they did that.
Yes.
They did that in 2017. When I watched the first one, I was like, MG. But anyway, right? But we did a great job with the second one.
Yeah.
The casting was completely different. I changed everything.
Yeah. You know what I usually say sometimes? Sometimes it's not even about the budget, it's about the people that you work with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can have like a less budget and have like well-experienced people who are willing to work and, and give the...
But so for me, everything starts with story, right? And so when I sat with my writers in the writers' room, we said, let's create characters that are different but believable.
So how many writers do you
use? Five.
Use five. So each writer they have their own responsibility.
Yeah.
So what does your main focus writers like if you say, if you mess up the story, but if that person messes up, at least we can cover it up.
So because we had 13 episodes and we had 5 writers, each one got an opportunity to write 2, right? And they did everything on that particular episode. But we were fortunate that we were writing it under lockdown level 5.
Oh, yes.
And we were able to run Zoom sessions, my God, probably 5-6 hours a day.
It's like, that's like being in the office.
But we were able to talk through that every single person knew exactly what each character was. So it was almost a godsend that we ended up having to write it under, COVID lockdown.
Yes.
That everybody was giving input into everyone's episode.
That's right, yeah.
But so, for example, we created this white character, and I'm using this particular as an example about that mindset of South African writers.
Yeah.
So immediately the writers go, okay, so she's the racist bitch, and I'm like, why? Because she's white. No.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
So I changed her, and she became, in fact, in terms of our viewer feedback, the viewers loved her the most. She ended up.
I'm sorry for. I'm enjoying this conversation. You know the reason I'm enjoying this conversation because each and every single piece you say, each and every single thing you say, it almost like a reference on a place where I was, and then I said something about this whole race thing about in the film industry in Cape Town, and then I was misinterpreted. To the point that at some point I was like, okay, cool. Black people don't have enough opportunities. I'm like, I don't hate white people. In fact, my mentors in the industry were white people.
Yes.
Actually, all of my mentors were white people.
Absolutely.
People who helped me in the industry were white people. When some other black, which I understand because there's less opportunities in Cape Town for black people. So if a black people gets an opportunity,
they want to keep you out.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's almost something like that they have it for themselves.
Fighting over scarce resources.
Yes, but my point was that I don't have any problem with white people in the film industry.
Yeah.
But the fact that there were white people that mentored me and helped me to be where I am today in the industry. does not take away the fact that
The industry needs to be transformed.
exactly the industry in Cape Town needs transformation when it comes to gender base, comes to color, when it comes to color and gender.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
But I also think just in terms of the kind of stories that we tell, you know, because for me, as much as I object to black people being stereotyped, colored people being stereotyped, white people have been stereotyped. You know, the white race, the white rich person, you know. Tell that to people who live in Reiterwacht. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, for example, I created this character called Candace, and I made an EFF supporter, right? Because there are white kids that support the EFF. So she wears a red beret, and she was like, you know, really militant. And I made the black character the Google, you know, with the long nails. And, oh, I can't. Struggle. No. You know, and people had never seen this before.
Yeah.
So we changed the stereotype and made it archetype. So, okay, Candace is the warrior, you know. This one's a damsel in distress. And, you know, so you change the narratives. And so for me, storytellers, we are in a very, very privileged position in changing the way people perceive themselves by changing those stereotypes into archetypes, you know. And in the same way, I was told by the SABC, you'll never find black crew in Cape Town. All the productions that we have in Cape Town.
I love this conversation because everything you are saying, it refers back to everything that I was, conversations that I was having, like, I love that.
They kept on saying to me, you know, if you can't find black crew, we're going to have to give it to a company in Joburg.
That's the thing.
No.
Listen, sorry, but you don't mind me saying Bev.
No.
So that's the thing. One lady at Durban Film Festival, when I was invited to be one of the speakers there in Durban Film Festival, Durban Film Mart or something like that.
Film Mart, yeah.
Yes. I raised this issue. And then she said that a black woman sitting in the middle of everyone, she said to me, no, there are black people in Cape Town. There are black HODs in Cape Town. I was like, no, it's simply because they're coming from Joburg. They're coming from Joburg. If you see a 50% black HOD, 50% white HOD, it's simply because of it's a production from Joburg. You know what I mean? It's not like it's a production from Cape Town. Yeah. Just, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, or maybe a director requested a DOP
from Joburg. I could bring Vincent Malloy from Joburg,
you know,
as a great black director to come and direct my series here because I couldn't. Also, look, I've been out of the loop in Cape Town, so I don't really know who's who.
You don't know.
But in Joburg,
exactly. That's the thing. Right? And that's the whole point. Yeah. It shouldn't be like that. No, it shouldn't be like a producer when they think about a black director, they think Joburg. Yeah. You know, it should be, oh, I know that guy. Exactly. He's in Cape Town. Exactly. Those are the things that, you know, so I'm loving what you're saying.
So now because of like DTI sort of BEE criteria and stuff, you cannot qualify for DTI unless you have a certain percentage of black HODs. So you suddenly have to start thinking, where the hell are they?
Yes.
You know? And so when I got told by the SABC in my pitch to them, yeah, if you can't give us black crew, then, you know, we're going to have to give it to Joburg Company. I remembered that in 2006, 2007, when we were doing a drama series in Cape Town, our Cape Town actors, black actors, had all moved to Joburg because in their minds there was no work for them here.
Yes.
So I suddenly had to pay to bring Cape Town-based actors back to Cape Town to act in a Cape Town production, right?
Yes.
And so you start to say to the acting fraternity saga, South African Guild of Actors, we need to have Cape Town actors stay in Cape Town. And the actors are saying to us, but what opportunities there, you know? So it is changing now with Netflix coming in and Amazon and production starting to happen in Cape Town.
I was saying...
so I know a lot of actors are now suddenly starting to say maybe we should move back to Cape Town.
Netflix actually
have changed the game.
Is changing it because I remember when I did the thing for them, the EPK for Blood and Water for them, they specifically were looking for a black director in Cape Town, and then the producer recommended me. You know, so Netflix is coming in a good way.
In a very good way.
In a very, very good way. You know, so.
But what I found was when we were shooting Signal High in 2020, in fact, we shot it during COVID, and I actually picked up COVID on that bloody shoot, was that there are black crew in Cape Town. They're just not HODs. So, for example, I found this amazing art director who on international productions was working as a set dresser.
Yeah.
And who probably would have worked for time immemorial as a set dresser
Yes.
or props master, who'd actually, after 15 years, could be a great art director. So I brought him, so I went to all the junior positions on international productions in Cape Town and found these amazing crew members that were incredibly talented, who I then brought into my productions as HODs, you know. And I think now with Netflix and Amazon and, you know, View and all of these sort of streamers coming in here, there's going to be much more opportunity.
Sure, sure.
But I also do think that there has to be a paradigm shift among the white industry and the black industry.
Yes.
The black industry needs to stop being a bunch of complaining,
Yes.
moaning delinquents
Yeah.
who are standing on the outside going, yeah, but there's no opportunity for us. Create your own opportunity.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Especially now there's Netflix.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And at the end of the day, the problem with South Africans often is that they don't, and I think it's a legacy of apartheid, and it's not just black people,
Yes.
it's white people as well. They are scared to think big, right? Because they're scared of failure, right? Sometimes maybe they're even scared of success, right? So they always want to then go for the safer option. And so I think with these streamers coming in, you've got to lose your fear, you know.
Yes, yes.
And when you come up with a story, understand that your audience is global. Your audience no longer is only that family of yours in Soweto.
Exactly.
You know? It's a broader audience.
Yes, exactly.
So come up with local stories, but that has universal appeal.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stories that I at Trace, people come to me with concepts,
Yes.
is what I'm looking for. For example, the series we're doing for Canal Plus at the moment in Nigeria is a African version of 6 Feet Under, which is literally a burial, a family that owns this burial business.
Yes.
So we look at the different rites of burial in Nigerian culture, but with a tongue firmly in cheek, with a whole lot of other shenanigans going on, you know, in this particular family.
Sure.
And that's not the kind of normal stories that are coming out of Africa. I think we also need to shift the focus of black stories from being pain and suffering and
From being obvious.
yeah,
You
do
know,
you know
if
what
it's
I
a-
mean?
if
We
it's a
all
black-
know that people are
Exactly.
starving in Africa, please.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. We've seen that 100 times.
Exactly.
You
So
know,
let's
1,000
start.
million.
Yeah. So let's start telling stories about. Okay, look, this is the other extreme of what famous and whatever. For me, that's not real, but it's an in-between thing of telling just ordinary human stories of people that have a joie de vie, you know, that have a sense of themselves and want to achieve things in life, you know, and focus on those kinds of stories of overcoming and being assertive. You know.
Exactly. Exactly. No. I mean, that's great. You know, as I said, that like the most thing that I love about everything that you've been saying is that everything that you just said is almost like an answer to these people that I was talking about I'm talking about offline now. You know, about such things. It's almost like you're bringing answers to these things that we were talking. And these people will be listening to this. I know that. You know, because they have been following us. You know, they will be listening to you. So I'm glad that you touched me. So you're saying that now because of all these like streamers are coming through Netflix and all of that, things are changing. So like, what is it that you think? Because obviously, these streamers, they come with their power. You know, we have the money, we have, you know, the resources, we have this. So this is what we want. So how do you think us as like Cape Town crew, Joburg crew, whatever, you know, can make this transformation when it comes to this gender and color issue in Cape Town, because it's a problem. And it, you know, the problem that I have, Bev, is that a lot of black people, they know, but they are all behind the curtain. You know, no one wants to speak because if you speak, someone is going to take your bread. Your HOD that hires you on each and every single job is not going to hire you anymore because he's white. The director that hires you to be their focus puller, they won't hire you anymore. I mean, or the DOP that hires you as their first, they won't hire you because you're talking about gender issues, which is why do they want this issue to be talked about? Because it's a very sensitive issue and it's truth. You know what I mean? So the question now, coming from a background, someone that has fought for, for freedom, of color, what do you think needs to change? Like, just forget about this, about because Netflix can decide tomorrow, I no longer want to be, I don't want to South African. Like, I'm talking about us now as South Africans and as crew, black and white, like in Cape Town. Like, what do you think needs to happen for this thing to be taken seriously and to be seen and to stop transformation?
So, besides putting a bomb under their asses, firstly, the industry is poised for an enormous growth at the moment, right? We are soon going to be in the same situation as the UK. At the moment, the UK has not got enough crew for all the productions that are happening because of the streamers and everything else, right?
Yes.
So a lot of South Africans have moved to the UK. A lot of my colleagues that I know are all in the UK.
I know,
right?
I know, yes.
We're reaching that level here soon. We're going to have not enough crew because competent crew, there's about 2,000 of us people in South Africa. You could say between Joburg and Cape Town that are working. It's not enough.
Yeah, that's not enough.
We're definitely going to need government intervention, right? I'm part of the IPO, and we've been having conversations with government precisely about this. That we're going.
I've been having
right. We need intervention.
There's we have an organization called Independent Directors Association. So, but I haven't spoken to Yolisa about this. I have been in touch with some parliament members and some parliament members. We have exchanged some emails with them talking about this issue. So
I'm going to put you in contact with my husband, who's the co-chair of the IPO, the Independent Producers Organization.
I'll remind you.
And
because
you need to be talking with the IPO, so that the IPO and the
IDA
work together.
That's great.
Absolutely. That's part of
that's
what I'm saying.
want.
Is that
that's what I want.
We almost need this industry cohesion.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Because of I've came out and then I've been voicing. I've made lots of enemies with a lot of people, lots of white people.
Yes.
People that believed in me, people who were
backstabber.
People who believed in me. Once I started talking about this issue, and then some other white people, or some other friends of mine were like, Andile, we watched that Devon film, Heart of Yours. I think you were a little bit, So
you need to be validated.
That's what they were telling me, some of them, sending messages, saying that we've watched it, and one of them said, we, I was like, you're talking to me now. What do you mean we? Which means they've been talking about this with other people, that we think that you said like a lot more that, you should
become an NWA.
You should have
with attitude.
She said to me, you should have at least approached it, saying to me that what you said was right, Andile, but at least you should have said it in the right way. I'm like, which right way? I'm saying as it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then from there, I started like losing like.
I think I remember seeing you you were on a panel.
On a panel.
Yeah, I do remember you. Oh, you were the IBFC.
IBFC, independent black filmmakers. Yes. Yes.
I remember you now.
The guy that was angry.
Yeah.
I was angry on stage. You remember? I was the guy that was the guy that was angry on stage.
Very angry on stage. I remember now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got overheated, didn't it? Yeah.
Okay. It did hit it with some of black people, because some other black people, because of they are managed by they I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna so once that happened, then that's when I realized that it's the beginning of my journey on this thing. Yeah. Because why are they gonna act like this if it's not wrong?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I think we are going to need the assistance of our white colleagues. And I hate having to use this apartheid era fucking terminology of white and black. Yeah. But unfortunately, it's the legacy of South Africa.
Yes.
We are going to have to unite as, irrespective of color, filmmakers who are interested in telling and owning the IP of authentic South African stories need to unite together to transform the
Sorry to cut you. I remember one other parliament guy said to me, like, but off records, send me a message, say, bro, if you want this to work, involve a political party like an EFF. And then I was like, no, I don't want to make it political. No, that's not the issue.
No.
Listen, that's what I said. I said, listen, I said to him, listen, brother, I appreciate you talking to me on the side, trying to, to advise me of how to, but I don't want to make this political.
We'll only see them every 5 years anyway, near voting time.
Exactly. Because once I don't want to, I want it to be something that filmmakers are involved in.
Yeah.
You know what, as at IPO. Like now, you're going to connect me with your husband, we're going to, take the fight further because I'm somewhere with this issue.
Yeah.
And IPO also, they are somewhere with the issue.
Yeah.
We're going to join forces together.
We have to realize that the industry has to transform. Government is going to start penalizing the industry. And it just happened with all of these rebates that the government refused to pay.
Yes.
Right? They're going to find punitive ways to punish people if transformation doesn't happen.
Exactly.
It is a bit of an insult to the industry that how many years down the line we're still talking about transformation in the industry.
Yeah.
Right? It has to transform.
It's a problem.
But we have to have everybody on board.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were saying, your mentors were white people.
They were white people.
Right? So with me, right?
Exactly.
And in many ways, it makes sense because a lot of white people have far more experience.
Exactly. Right? Do you know what one of my mentors said to me after they said, Andile, I watched your podcast, and then he said, Andy, what he said, Andile, I watched your podcast, keep up the good fight. Yeah. And then I knew what he was talking about. He said, Andile, I watched your podcast, keep up the good fight. He's a white, one of my old mentors, a white guy. You know what I mean? So this thing is not about white and black. It's about transformation.
We need to be having our eyes on the prize. And the eyes on the prize is a successful, burgeoning, successful South African film and television industry that can compete globally, right? If you think about it, the South African film industry is even older than Hollywood, right? We were making films here in South Africa when Hollywood didn't even bloody exist.
Exactly.
The first feature film that was made in South Africa was called The Great Trek, right? And it was made in 1908 or something.
Yes.
Right? No, the 1800s, 1890 something, right? You can find that film in the archives in Pretoria. Apartheid, unfortunately, just messed up the history of the South African film industry.
Yeah.
By becoming what it was.
Yes.
A propaganda machine. So we have a long history of, and for me, I don't know, you guys are probably too young, but the best drama series was ever created in this country was done by Afrikaners. Right? Those drama series called Arende and
I believe
Word
that.
for My Brood.
There
were all these SABC, before it was called SABC 1, 2, and 3, back in the day.
CCTV.
Yeah.
CCTV.
They made, and TV1 it was called, right?
Or TVI, TV1.
They made these incredibly authentic South African story, Afrikaner South African drama series,
Yes.
right? That was on par with the best in the world, right? And I've always said, the way, you know how theatre works, because I come from a theatre background.
Sure.
Right? The way theatre works is that you always learned from the actor that had been in the industry for longer than you. So as a young intern, you would watch an actor and you think, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
You know? I come from a period in the industry where we did apprenticeships, right? There wasn't like you went to films. There was no film school for black people. I think there was sticks for white people in Pretoria, but that was it. There wasn't a film department at Wits, UCT, none of that. Right?
Yeah.
You learned on the job with a mentor. Barry Creel being my mentor,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Back in the day.
What an amazing guy.
And that's how you learned the hard way because you were working on the job. You couldn't afford to fuck up, you know, because you were working on the job. So we almost need to return to that thing of apprenticeships, right? But also I think the most important thing is that we have to get the buy-in of everybody. Because for me, when I watched a guy like, an actor like Danny Keogh, for example, came onto the set of a series we were shooting for Fremantle here in Cape Town. It was called The Interrogation Room. And he was playing a baddie. We had some junior black actors, young graduates from AFTA, on the same set. And they watched Danny Keogh. Danny Keogh, every take that he did, the smoking in the scene, every take that he did, he lit his cigarette at the same moment. He blew the same amount of rings. At every take, exactly the same.
That's precise.
Right?
Yeah.
Now that is a master.
Yeah,
at work.
exactly. Yeah, that's
Irrespective of your fucking skin color. That is a master
Yeah,
at work.
exactly.
Right? And you could see these young black actors looking, oh my God. And that's when I realized the damage that we are doing because of this Bantu stanization, right, of content, is that young black kids are not getting the opportunity to work with these old stalwarts because Danny Keogh does not speak Xhosa, right? So he's not in the series because we need to have only Xhosa speaking people.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
When we were doing interrogation room, the commissioning editor kept on saying to us, no, it must be Xhosa. So I said, okay, this is a crime drama series. Are you telling me, we're telling South Africans that in Cape Town, all criminals speak Xhosa? He looked at me and he went, oh shit. And I said, that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so it's about changing that mindset that everybody needs to come together, irrespective of your race. Well,
Exactly.
Look, for me, blackness is not a color skin, it's a mindset.
Exactly.
And there are some white people in this country that are more black than black people.
That's true.
Because they have more interests of poor black South Africans at heart than your Benzi bloody elite. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's a consciousness, you know.
Yeah.
And if we can all come together having that same consciousness about transforming the industry for the better of the ordinary person in this country. We run an after-school program on the Cape Flats where we're trying to teach young people to dream again. Because our kids don't dream anymore, right?
No.
They haven't got dreams anymore.
I mean, in the like society, like that we're living in
and
now.
what we're not teaching our kids at high school,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about government schools,
Yeah.
the possibility that they could be in the film industry.
That's true.
Right?
That's
when
true.
when I go and talk to schools, they say, how do you work in this industry? I say, you know when you watch a movie and you see those white ticks coming up at the end,
Yeah.
what is it called? Credits. All right. Yeah. Do you know what each credit is? No, that's a job.
That's a good.
And they go, what? And I say, every single white thing is a job.
That's job. That's true. It's someone paying their family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so it's about making sure that we transform our audiences,
Yeah.
right? And the only way, how do you transform an audience? By the content, by the stories that we're telling, right? We need to transform our crew. We need to transform our producers. We also need to let our film schools realize that not everybody is going to be directors and producers.
Exactly.
Right? If I am as a producer in this industry, I need a whole lot of new ADs. There's not enough ADs, competent ADs.
Not at all.
Continuity. OMG, we need continuity. What the people also don't understand is, let's talk to young people about the trajectory of their careers. So if you're coming into the industry, you want to be a director.
Yes.
What do you do to become a director?
Yeah.
You don't become a director by osmosis overnight.
No.
You start out as an AD. Some of them start out as AD.
Yes.
Some of them start out as continuity.
Yes,
right?
that's true.
Some of them start out in camera, right? And they work their way to becoming.
Yes. Like I started as an AD and then I went to camera. You know, like I've worked on all departments coming up. Then
So I think when I go to film schools, I like to tell people we have too many chiefs and not enough Indians.
That's
right?
so true.
Everybody wants to be the chief, producer. And again, let's change that mindset. When people ask me what I do, I say I'm a storyteller, right?
That's a great way.
And it doesn't matter whether you're a producer, director. At the end of the day, it's the story that we're telling that's the most important thing.
Yes.
So I think as organizations in this industry, we need to come together.
Yeah.
We need to be honest with each other. South Africans need to learn that if I differ with you over something, I don't need that to hit you, right? And that comes from Parliament. Even in Parliament, when we disagree, that means that emotionally South Africans are still 5-year-olds. We throw tantrums, right? We're violent, right? We want to punch each other. We don't understand that debate means you believe what you believe, I believe what I believe, right?
Yeah.
And we can come to an agreement that it's cool, right? Sometimes I can convince you, sometimes I can't convince you.
Exactly.
But in South Africa, what happens is that if you don't agree with me, I want to take you out.
That's true.
That's a psychosis.
Yeah.
I stand on international platforms and I say South Africans need to be in therapy. Huh?
Yeah.
Because we actually quite fucked up. So we polarize ourselves all the time. I'm tired of being in Johannesburg, sitting in industry gatherings, which become fistfights. Right? That means you don't have enough emotional intelligence
Yes.
to thrash out difference of opinion. Right?
Yes, that's true.
So we need to overcome our emotional responses, and we have to start dealing with the legacy of apartheid in a honest and engaging way.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, look at Cape Town. She's on the beach, it becomes a racist thing. Road rage, it becomes a racist thing. I myself am privy to that. I've been in queues in supermarkets
Yeah.
where I'm going to a white person, hey, get to the back of the queue. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, as South Africans, we need to realize that on a daily basis, we're dealing with legacies. And people can say, oh, but apartheid is so far away. No. Black people have not unlearned inferiority. So we're always coming from a position of being defensive.
That's so true.
And white people have not unlearned superiority, right? It's almost God-given, I'm superior to you because I happen to be white. You know,
Yes.
that needs to be challenged.
Exactly.
So we almost all need to go through some form of, I would say, paradigm shift and an emotional kind of honesty in trying to understand, let me see what it is like to be in your position
Yeah.
before we start hurling insults and physical abuse at each other. Because this industry, I've watched it, transformation, I've been part of this transformation narrative since the 90s.
Yeah.
And I've seen the fists and the anger, and it's embarrassing
Exactly.
because we can't still be stuck there, you know. We have to come to a point where we can actually engage and say, what's the best way for us to move forward? And for me, it is to have honest discussion and to see what is the best way for us to work together as a collective.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. So just to close up the podcast, I mean, this has been so much informative and educational for me. You know what I mean? So thank you so much for,
My pleasure.
for coming through to the, to this podcast. I wish that we can have you every week. I
Don't
wish
have the time, but anyway.
I
yeah.
wish I could sit with you here every week and talk about these things, until they become a conversation to everyone.
It has to
Because-
become a national discourse.
Exactly, because at the moment now it's a conversation in that corner and
Yeah.
in that corner,
Yeah.
because people are just protecting their bread, their
Sorry,
food.
that's just quickly, something you raised earlier about people talking off the record.
Yes.
The minute they have to come on record,
Yes.
get rid of your fear,
Yes.
Because if you're still going to be caught up in that fear, we're never going to change it.
That's true.
And I'm sure what's happened to you, we end up being the only person in that meeting putting up a hand
Yes.
and challenging. And then
Exactly.
you become the problem child.
Exactly.
So that's one of the things that's keeping us back. And that's our own black brothers and sisters who are doing that. So they
Exactly.
need to take responsibility for the lack of
Exactly.
transformation as well.
Because
not just
it's
white
like
people.
they say everything is fine. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
But there are even white people who are saying now there's no transformation.
Yeah.
There are some other people who are saying that there's no
course it is.
transformation in Cape
Yeah.
Town. You know what I mean? There are white people who are saying
Yeah.
that. And then a black person says, no, Andile, why did you say that? You're wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Because they want to keep nice so that they can keep their jobs.
Exactly.
That's not going to help anybody.
Exactly.
Then.
So, guys, as I said to you, that this is uncensored and this is unscripted. We just say it as it is. We didn't talk about this before the show. This is just something that we relate. With as Bev, because as you can hear, like her background. She's been, for someone who has fought for the freedom of color. You know what I mean? Agreeing with some of the things that I'm saying, At some point, I thought that I was the problem, because some of my black brothers were like, nah, which I understood because they want to keep their jobs, they don't want to reveal themselves, and then they lose work, So, Bev, thank you so much. Any last words before we can?
So what I tell my students, I used to teach at Big Fish.
Damn.
The only thing that you have,
You've also been at Big Fish as well.
4 years ago.
You're what you call
A
the
veteran.
legend. You are a true legend.
If-
all the associations and organizations that you've mentioned, yeah. So yeah.
So for me, what I always tell my students is be yourself. The only thing that you have is who you are. So be yourself. Don't try and change who you are. I'm tired of walking into black filmmakers in Cape Town that's, hey, what's up? You know, and
Yes.
they sound like, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
they're from Constantia, you know. There's nothing wrong with that, but just be authentic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because if I can see you being the same person in a room full of white people as you are in a room full of black people, then you're okay. But if I see there's a difference, you got issues, my friend.
Yes.
You know. So it's about, and that's the only thing that has saved me in these past 30 years in this industry is being myself.
Awesome.
And I don't care whether you like it or not.
Yes.
It's who I am.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I was saying like to Kim on the other episode that, you know, when people like you come into the podcast, you know, once this podcast gets into a good financial point, when people like you are coming, you know, we would have something for you so that when we can, you know, acknowledge what you've done, the contribution that you've done for the industry, and say, hey, listen, thank you so much. Here's a gift, or maybe here's your trophy that has been made, you know, by the podcast, saying one of our legends, you know, acknowledging you, you know what I mean? So, but my words right now, you know, they're just the words of acknowledgement of what you have done for the industry and for what you've done for, you know, for all of us as black people, whether black or white or whatever, you know, because it's not about black, it's about freedom. It's about being free. It's about, you know, transformation, things, people changing and being transformed, being equal, you know. So, and you fought for that since day one in your life.
During the struggle when I was 13,
Exactly.
almost 60.
Just
so,
13 years old. Ask me what I was thinking when I was 13 years old, where I was not even thinking about the struggle when I was 13, and you were in the struggle, fighting for equality and transformation and change. You know, so thank you so much for that. We appreciate you. And so, guys, that's the end of our episode for this week. So we'll see you on the next one.